Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Rise Up. Here we talk about responsibility, integrity, service, and empathy in action. And we learn what's going on in the world and the difference that I can make. We are here with just Ricky and I. Ricky, hello. Ricky DeSena, our UN liaison correspondent. And today we have an interesting episode. We're going to talk about a recent event, the UN, uh, in Glasgow, or I should say Glasgow conference on climate change with some significant leaders. And I'm going to cover a quick discussion, and then we're going to give you an announcement. All right, so stay tuned for that. Let's go to Ricky. What is our story today? Actually, I can tell you it's the UN Climate Change Conference, UK, this time, 2021. So, yeah, can you give us a summary?
Yeah, thank you, Miilhan. As everyone who is following anything related to climate change is aware, COP26 is happening right now. We're in our third day. And yesterday, we had a very interesting uh, day, a very interesting panel in which we got a lot of really good responses from world leaders, as well as leaders in business as well. So one thing that stood out to me from the second day from the article that we read was the commitment from 110 countries, which represent 85% of the planet's forest, to sign the COP26 Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forest and Land Use. So basically, this was a commitment by all the signatories to basically cut down on carbon emissions and also being careful about the kind of investments they were making in the kinds of businesses that were present in their economy. So that's a really big change, and it's something that we've been looking for as people that are hoping to see some change. Um, Hold on, let me put this up on screen. Forgot about that. Yeah, so here we have it. And something else that really stood out to me was actually the involvement of the private sector. So you can see here that Jeff Bezos was there, and he's making a commitment along with the Bezos Earth Fund to restore nature and transform food systems. Along with the $1 billion he pledged in September, and at the end, we had the indigenous leaders, come up, and they were, speaking about, you know, their experience, their challenges, and what really stood out to me about the indigenous community, the leader, was he was expressing that these are really really good promises that are being made, but the most important thing is that they take action. And of note was a quote from the article that said from him, from the indigenous leader, if 80% of what is proposed is directed to supporting land rights and proposal of indigenous and local communities, we will see a dramatic reversal in the current trend that's destroying our natural resources. So I think my biggest takeaway was just it's a lot of really really good progress, a lot of promises that are being made, but it's all like things we wanted to see from our leaders. And so the next step, following COP26, I think is keeping them accountable and pushing them to really take action on these promises, these pledges, these words they uh, gave at the COP26.
Very good. Yeah, this is exciting. I mean, well, it's very hopeful, as we always look for hope in these uncertain times. It's nice to see the connection of the UN and the United States and Jeff Bezos. Honestly, I think Amazon is its own country sometimes, at least with their GDP. I'm just looking at what Joe Biden has promised, President Biden. You mentioned 20 million hectares of forest is already being restored, and that the U.S. is announcing a new plan to support the halt of deforestation and restoring carbon sinks. So that's cool. I think, again, I always remind people that reforestation is the most popular approach to reducing carbon emissions, and it just makes sense. I mean, you destroyed all these forests. Well, I think that probably had an effect on the planet, so we should probably plant them back.
Yeah.
Along with all the wildlife and the biodiversity that was affected. So yeah, this is really, really great stuff here. Very encouraging. Like you said, how do we keep accountable to this? How do we stay consistent, despite what may come our way? We were just having a little chat about pledges, right? We hear about Jeff Bezos's pledge of $2 billion. Well, pledge hopefully will be, there's usually a length of time where that's paid out. And so again, we're hopeful, optimistic. And I think the point is that we have these top leaders making this an important subject that we can move forward on. But I don't know, anything else to say about it, Ricky?
No, I think the one thing that that's really stand out for me as well is the fact, as you said, President Biden's making these pledges and promises, but the fact that the United States is there at all is huge, considering last year, as well as the last few years, Trump wasn't attending. So I think the United States should be at the forefront of some of these changes. I think we haven't been doing enough. The country as our size, we should be doing a lot more, and we can be doing a lot more. So I think it's really hopeful seeing Biden there and seeing the kind of promises he's making. And also I'm a huge believer in planting trees. I think that's one of the easiest, most efficient ways to affect our environment. So I'm so glad that he's taking that seriously and making commitments about that as well.
Yeah, very good. And it's true. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal that we are present. I wanted to bring our attention to something that Secretary General Gutierrez said. I don't know if you want to scroll down to see that, Ricky, but I'll just say it. This is the headline on the UN website. COP26, enough of, quote, treating nature like a toilet, close quote. Gutierrez brings stark call for climate action to Glasgow. So this is such a great, I think, analogy. Ricky pointed out that Mr. Beast did a video recently on cleaning up the dirtiest beach in the world. And he was able to amass 10x support, 10x volunteers to come out and clean it up. And then he did also a fundraiser. For every $1 donated, it's a pound of trash cleaned up on the beach. It was, it's pretty funny. And of course, millions and millions of views. And it's just a reminder that it's true. We treat the planet like a toilet, like we're in a giant hamster cage, and we're just not circulating all the nitrogen that we are producing. trash that we're producing. It's not carbon, all that stuff's not being recycled properly. So I have to agree. And the way he phrased it, you probably wouldn't expect to come out of the mouth of the Secretary General, but sometimes that helps make a point. So this is going to lead to our announcement at the end of this call today. But let me get into a quick topic, and this relates to climate change. It also relates to kind of a little bit of the political world. So last week, I was in an interesting conversation with a group of young people who were interested in doing a tree planting project. And they were commenting on our enthusiasm for climate change with some hesitation, because they themselves kind of did not necessarily follow the anti-capitalist point of view, which is the tendency for those who advocate for climate change tend to advocate against capitalism, more towards a socialistic and maybe even communist sort of approach to governance. Excuse me, I'm getting calls. So the idea is, at least in my point of view, and I think this is something that we need to maybe clarify for YSP, is that we take kind of we look at both sides. We see the more capitalistic, conservative approach, liberal, socialistic sort of approach to governance or any kind of society building ideology, and we look at the benefits of both of them and how we can tackle bigger problems by working together. For me, I see the liberal side as more of a feminine, motherly, caring, concerned, wanted to take care of the more disenfranchised. And then the right is more of a, come on, more competitive, or growth and development, less concern for those who can't quite make it. Don't worry, they'll have to grow up. So this kind of more of a fatherly approach. I think if we work together, it'd be amazing. Now, we have to, in order to do that, we have to find problems that are bigger than our differences. And so what I like seeing is the possibility of climate change, climate action being that bigger problem. Now, I think there's a different level of interest in the subject today. I can tell you, and I can quote some conservatives who also understand that believe that climate change is man-made, but maybe the extent or the approach might be different. And so, at least with YSP, we're interested in finding ways to harmonize these two different approaches, and so which I think will make this show even more interesting, or kind of things that we do. Maybe someday we can bring on, both sides, and kind of facilitate a discussion about some synergistic result of that discussion. But that was just my thought, my 2 cents today. And I don't know, we'll give you any more comment about this topic. Did you hear my question?
Sorry, no, I missed it.
Do you have any more comment on this discussion around finding a higher purpose so that both the right and the left
points
of view work together towards
it? I think your point is kind of makes a lot of sense. I think we're kind of at a stage where climate change isn't something that most people can like deny. But we're still seeing a lot of like disagreements about, between the right and left, at least in the States, about like how we tackle climate change. Conservatives are saying like, oh, we should do it this way, and Democrats are like, oh no, we should do it this way. So I think like creating a space for both parties to sit down and talk and be like, hey, we need to figure out a solution that works for everyone. And I think when you, create a space like that, it's a lot easier to, I don't know, have a more civilized conversation, get some more progress done instead of just like yelling at each other on the internet, as is usually the case.
Right, because I think what helps is to give a specific example, ideas that can be looked at objectively, as opposed to just battling the different ideologies, which are inherently different. There's you're not going to convert someone to think to take on your ideology. I know they're different for a reason. I mean, I think they're different in order to balance and create some, the sum can be greater than the parts.
Yeah.
So I think we should stop trying to battle each other's approaches and instead offer specific examples or ideas or solutions that can be looked at on both sides, and really thoroughly discuss the feasibility of that solution. I think the more we do that, the better use of our time. Because look, I'm busy, you're busy. We have a lot of meetings that are very expensive. It's like, I've done many events and had many meetings, and I always say that the fastest way to bring any kind of consensus or consent is a really good idea.
Yeah.
And you're looking for everyone around the table to nod their heads and say, yes, oh yeah, I like that. That's good. Then boom, the meeting can be done. But if it's just like, yeah, okay, we should just get along, guys. Why don't we just get along? Like, look, that's not what this is about. We have a problem to solve, So just come up with that. Please, I'm always the first person to like put a crazy idea on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And until that moment, the meeting hasn't really started, in my opinion. Once you put an idea on the table, then all of a sudden the conversation gets real. And we're not just like kind of like, oh, speaking generalities. And so I don't even care how. Usually, I put an extreme idea on the table. That way, I make sure everyone, I force everyone to say something about it. Because they know me, I'm crazy enough to like move forward on something like that.
That's true.
What? I always, sometimes when I ask people, a question about, how many do you think will come, or how many this or that, like, I don't know, and I just throw out numbers. 100?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, not 100. Oh, 50? No, yeah, no, 30, 35? Like, yeah. Again, what I'm doing is I'm putting stuff on the table. Like, please, let's discuss something specific. Because the fact is, our world's constantly changing. The context is constantly changing. For us not to be specific is just wasting time. So,
yeah,
that's why whenever I'm in these think tanks, Ricky, I'm always just like tossing out ideas, and I don't even care who thinks about it, how they think about it. Because I'm a little bit tired of hearing the jibber jabber.
Too much of that.
Yeah, lots of it. But I understand it. I understand that we have to hold our, keep things well positioned, moving steadily. Don't make any sudden movements. I understand that. It's like playing chess. The king piece only moves one space at a time. I understand that. So I'm begging all the young people or anyone to propose things and, be loud about it. It's okay. It's good. I think we're doing that. So that's going to come to my last point, everybody. And here's the announcement, okay? We are going to retool Rise Up. I think, just so you know, my purpose for starting this show, since I first became president, was simply to build more harmony and camaraderie on our team. Because Naria, Ricky, Ira, she came out of nowhere to join our team. Like, this sort of thing was valuable for us. Now that we've kind of, we've done something with it, it needs a little more spice. So my analogy here is that we've been eating not plain, cheese pizza, maybe extra cheese sometimes. But now I want to put some pepperonis on it. Okay. So not spicy, but I'm not putting jalapenos, or I'm not going extreme like Hawaiian pizza yet. I'm thinking just put some pepperonis on it. So the idea is to have topics that are a little more spicy and a little more interesting. And I think the result of this, like I've just been saying this whole show today, is we might come up with some really cool ideas, and something that no one's ever thought of before. So that's what I hope we can do. And keep in mind that we do have quite a network around the world. We also have a network of other, UN consultative status organizations. And I think if we do come up with a good idea, we're in a position to put it forth. So we also invite you in the audience to please comment and share with us your thoughts, so we can make this world a little bit better, a little bit spicier, a little more interesting. And with that, we're going to close today. So that means we're not going to have a show next week and probably the week after. So I hope you don't miss us too much. But if you really want to reach out to us, you always can through our Facebook, website, Instagram, etc. And that's it. That's going to be it today. See you in a few more weeks.
Right.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.